My name is Jillian Brandt, but everyone calls me Jill. I'm 31, a chef who learned to keep a blade sharper than my feelings. On the night my dream opened its doors, 23 chairs waited beneath warm light and white linen, each one with a name card I lettered by hand, like small prayers I could touch. I told myself not to look. Don't look at the corner where I'd reserved the family tables. Don't look for faces that always arrived late but demanded to be first. Focus on the sizzle, the pull of the oven door, the thrill of the ticket printer spitting tiny miracles. Focus on the couple at table 4 who said the scallops tasted like August. Focus on the little boy who pressed his nose to the dessert case until it fogged. Focus on the laughter that rose and softened like something living. Just don't look. Of course I looked. At 6:00 p.m., the doors to Haven Table swung open like a held breath released. The room filled fast. This city has a way of showing up for new beginnings the way flowers break concrete. Quiet, sure, unstoppable. By 6:45, we were full. I posed for photos with my sleeves rolled up, my hair pulled back, the burn on my wrist like a badge of devotion. I shook hands, thanked strangers, poured champagne, and smiled until my cheeks hurt. Every 10 minutes, I glanced at the far corner. The family table sat like a stage waiting for actors, 3 pushed together under the ivy wall I'd insisted on installing myself, because greenery makes people believe in second chances. On each linen napkin, a name written in my careful script: Mom, Margaret; Liam, my brother; Aunt Karen; Uncle Ed; Cousin Jess. Even the cousins' kids, who never liked my food but always asked for seconds. I made gold stars for each name card. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted the room to shine when they finally showed up. At 7:15, the stars were still shining. The chairs were still empty. I told myself they were stuck in traffic. Or maybe they were all coming together for a grand entrance. Maybe Mom had roped them into matching sweaters for a family photo. She loved a performance, especially when it looked like love. My server Mateo hovered at my elbow. Chef, do you want me to seat walk-ins at the corner? We've turned away 2 parties. I looked at the untouched water glasses, already sweating rings into the linen. Leave them, I said softly, ridiculous hope disguised as calm. At 8:02, I stopped pretending. The corner looked like a shrine to something dead. I hid in the back, pretending to count inventory. I went through the same box of compostable straws 3 times and wrote down 3 different numbers. The walk-in hummed. The pans clinked. The restaurant sounded like it was breathing on its own. It should have felt like homecoming. Instead, it sounded like mourning. When I came out again, the night was soft and slow. A man at the bar proposed to his girlfriend with a ring hidden inside a macaron. She cried. The whole restaurant cheered. Someone said my pastry chef deserved a raise. I nodded like I'd heard them, but my mind was elsewhere, at a poker table, most likely. By 9:03, the laughter faded into the hum of cleanup. I stood in the doorway between the kitchen and the dining room, watching coats slide onto shoulders, friends hug goodbye. The corner remained untouched. At 9:48, I turned the deadbolt. The street outside glowed cold and blue. That's when a man in a gray overcoat stepped from the lamplight as if he'd been folded inside it. Middle-aged, neat haircut, quiet confidence. He looked at the sign, then at me. You're the owner? Chef owner, I said. The title felt like armor. He offered his hand. His grip was firm, but not performative. Dalton, good work tonight. I blinked. Thank you. I've been watching this place come together for months, he said. The discipline, the restraint. You don't overreach. I like that. He reached into his coat and handed me a card the color of bone. I represent a small investment group, 6 figures to start, if it feels right. I knew better than to trust easy miracles, but there was something in his tone, not pity, not salesmanship, just recognition. Call me, he said simply, tomorrow. Then he turned and disappeared into the night. The card sat in my palm like a promise I wasn't sure I deserved. That's when my phone buzzed. Once, twice, then over and over until the bar counter rattled. I looked down. 89 missed calls. All from Mom. No texts, no apologies, just the persistence of guilt dressed as concern. I didn't need to guess where she'd been. I could already hear the laughter echoing from my brother Liam's living room, cards shuffling, beer bottles clinking. Poker night. I should explain Liam. Everyone loves him. He's charming in that effortless way that makes you feel like being near him is a favor he's granting you. When we were kids, he could spill milk and still be called thoughtful for wiping it up. I could ace an exam and Mom would say, "Don't make your brother feel bad." She called it balance. I called it gravity. Everything always fell toward him. I slid the investor's card into my apron pocket and locked the door. The restaurant lights flickered softly, as if even they knew how to stay loyal when people didn't. I didn't go home. I couldn't. Ethan, my boyfriend, would have tried to make it better, told me they meant well, told me to forgive. But I didn't want comfort. I wanted quiet. I sat at the bar, lights dimmed, the hum of the cooler filling the air like white noise in a hospital. I laid my head down on the leather bench in the hallway and listened to the silence I used to mistake for peace. When I opened my eyes, sunlight was leaking through the blinds. My neck ached. The espresso machine smelled like burned hope. I plugged in my phone. The screen filled with red bubbles. Mom, Liam, Aunt Karen, Jess, unknown. Dozens of calls, all the same story I didn't want to hear. I took a breath and called Mom. She answered on the first ring, voice breathless with relief. "Jill, oh, thank God. I've been calling you all night. Honey, it was just one of those mix-ups." "What kind of mix-up?" "Well, Liam wanted to stream your opening for everyone. You know, to make it like we were there supporting you from home." Her voice brightened, fragile as glass. "And then it sort of turned into a poker night. We were cheering for you, though. Every time the camera panned to someone clapping, we said, 'That's our Jill.'" I gripped the edge of the counter until my knuckles went white. "You watched it on TV?" "Well, yes, but the important thing is we were together, thinking of you, and having fun." She hesitated. "We felt so bad once we realized how late it was. We want to make it up to you. We'll come by tonight with a cake and balloons. Take some pictures for Facebook. Show everyone how proud we are." My throat went dry. "Sure," I said quietly. "Let me know when." "Oh, perfect. We'll be there around 7. Love you, sweet girl." "Uh-huh," I said and hung up. That night, I didn't unlock the door. Let them stand outside with their supermarket cake and borrowed guilt. Let them wonder why the lights were off. Let them take a picture in front of the restaurant and caption it "Proud of our Jill," as if attendance could be retroactive. The next day, Mr. Conrad, my parents' neighbor and full-time town gossip, walked in, smiling like a man who'd found buried treasure. "Heard about your investor," he said, adjusting his cap. "Saw him shake your hand. Big news." I kept my tone even. "It's not confirmed. I'd rather keep it private." He nodded, eyes gleaming. Of course, between you and me, and maybe my book club." 2 hours later, my phone buzzed. "Jess, heard about the investor. So proud of you." 5 minutes after that, Liam calling. I ignored it. A text followed. "Let's talk. We've got ideas. This could be big for all of us." All of us. That phrase sat in my chest like spoiled milk. I opened my laptop behind the bar, not to write a menu or schedule, but a list. Title: Who showed up when it counted? One name after another, small, deliberate cuts. If this was going to be a family story, I decided, I'd write it myself, and this time I wouldn't flinch. The morning after the opening felt like waking up inside a bruise. Everything looked the same, but it hurt to touch. I brewed burnt coffee in the back kitchen and stood there barefoot on cold tile, staring at the reservation board still marked with my family's names. The white chalk dust had smudged overnight, blurring into gray streaks, like ghosts refusing to leave quietly. The silence broke when my phone lit up again. Mom, of course. I didn't answer. Then Liam. Then Aunt Karen. The same chorus of people who had been too busy last night suddenly couldn't go 5 minutes without trying to reach me. I let them all go to voicemail, each one piling up like junk mail in my mind. When I finally sat down at the bar with my laptop, I stared at the spreadsheet I'd made. Who showed up when it counted? It was an ugly document. Names lined up like invoices, each one owing something they'd never pay. I wasn't sure why I made it. Maybe I just wanted proof that I hadn't imagined the emptiness. By 10 a.m., the restaurant smelled faintly of bleach and regret. I forced myself to focus on something else. Stock orders, payroll, cleaning supplies. But the thoughts kept circling back like flies. Then, against my better judgment, I listened to one voicemail. "Jill, sweetheart, please call me back." Mom's voice cracked, trying to sound warm. It was just one of those nights. You know how your brother gets people excited? We thought watching together would make it special. I told everyone how proud I was of you. Liam even set up the TV and snacks. It was supposed to be a family celebration. She paused, then sighed. We got carried away, but we were there in spirit. And we want to come by tonight with a cake and maybe some champagne. We'll make it right. Her version of making it right was a photo op for Facebook, a chance to rewrite the story before the guilt caught up. I deleted the voicemail and took a deep breath. A few hours later, Mr. Conrad popped his head in again, waving like this was the corner bakery. "Morning, chef," he said, the words rolling out too easily. "Heard from your mom. Everyone's so proud of you." I gave a polite nod. "Thanks, Mr. Conrad." He leaned on the counter, lowering his voice. "Word's spreading about that investor fellow. Must be nice, huh? Some people have all the luck." Luck. That word. It always sounded like an insult when people used it to explain your work. By noon, the rumors had officially traveled faster than the truth. My cousin Jess texted, "Heard about the investor. That's huge. So proud of you." I didn't reply. Then Liam called again. When I didn't answer, he sent a message. "Let's talk. We've got ideas. This could be big for all of us." That last part, all of us, snapped something quiet inside me. All of us hadn't been there last night when I was shaking hands with strangers and pretending I didn't see 23 empty chairs. All of us hadn't stayed up counting tips and inventory to afford this place. All of us hadn't spent Christmases and birthdays in other people's kitchens, learning how to build something from scraps. No, all of us were a myth that only existed when money was on the table. That afternoon, Ethan stopped by. He leaned against the counter, concern written all over his face. "You look exhausted," he said softly. "I'm fine," I lied. He watched me wipe down the already spotless surface. "Your mom called me," he added carefully. "She said they tried to surprise you. Maybe there was just a misunderstanding." "Ethan," I said, still scrubbing, "how do you misunderstand showing up?" He hesitated. "Families make mistakes." I met his eyes. "They didn't forget, Ethan. They chose." He didn't argue, just nodded, kissed the top of my head, and said, "You don't have to deal with it today." Then he left, taking his calm with him. By evening, I had replayed every phone call I hadn't answered. I imagined the explanations stacking like dominoes. "We meant to come, but got caught up. Liam said it was being streamed, so we thought it was fine. You know we love you." Each one flimsy enough to crumble under the weight of truth. Then, at 7:30, I got another voicemail from Mom. Her voice was chipper now, almost rehearsed. "We're at the restaurant, honey. Got the cake, candles, and everything. Where are you?" I looked out the small window by the prep sink and saw them, standing on the sidewalk in front of Haven Table. Mom in her bright pink coat, Aunt Karen holding a white sheet cake from the grocery store, the kind that tastes like wet sugar. Liam had his phone out, filming. They smiled at the darkened windows, smiled for a picture that said, "Proud family, supporting our girl." I watched from the dark kitchen until they gave up and left. When the street light flickered on, I whispered to myself, "Now you know." The next day, the pity parade began. Aunt Karen dropped by with 2 pies, saying she'd just been nearby. 1 coconut cream, 1 banana, neither of which I liked. She didn't ask about the opening. She didn't apologize. She just said, "The place looks wonderful, sweetheart. Must be nice to have everyone so proud." Then, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, she added, "You should think about a brunch menu. My neighbor's daughter's looking for work. 16. Great personality. Family helps family, right?" I told her we weren't hiring. She lingered a moment longer, then patted my arm. "Just remember who's always been there for you." She left the pies on the counter. As soon as she was gone, I threw both in the trash. The smell of artificial coconut hung in the air, cloying and cheap. That night, I sat alone at one of the empty tables, lights dimmed, my laptop open to that spreadsheet again. The cursor blinked like a heartbeat at the end of the last name, Margaret Brandt. I whispered, "You showed up for him." Then I added one more name to the list, Liam Brandt. Started the poker night. And next to it, a single note, knew exactly what he was doing. The ache in my chest didn't feel like pain anymore. It felt like clarity. Let them talk about investors. Let them imagine profit sharing and legacy. For once, I wasn't going to explain myself. I wasn't going to chase their approval or wait for their apology. I'd let them keep calling, keep texting, keep guessing what I was planning. Because the truth was, I already knew what came next. They wanted to play family? Fine. I'd let them set the table. And when the time came, I'd be the one holding the bill. By the 3rd day after my opening, the phone calls slowed, but the visits began. They didn't come to say sorry. They came to rewrite history. The first to appear was Aunt Karen, clutching a bottle of wine and 2 pies like an offering to some fragile god. She beamed the way people do when they're performing warmth. Sweetheart, I've been dying to see your beautiful place. I can't believe how far you've come. We're all so proud of you. The last part hit wrong, not the words themselves, but the timing. Pride should have arrived before the investor rumor, not after. I kept my smile polite and brittle. Thanks, Aunt Karen. Would you like a tour? Oh, please, she gushed, already walking past me, her eyes scanning every corner like a realtor taking inventory. So cozy. I just love what you've done with the space. You must be so busy now that you're, successful. I let her talk, watched her run a hand along the bar I'd sanded myself. She finally placed the pies down on the counter, coconut cream and banana. The same two flavors I'd hated since childhood. She didn't ask about opening night. She didn't mention missing it. She just smiled and said, "You should think about adding a brunch menu, honey. My neighbor's daughter needs a job. Sweet girl, responsible. You'd love her." I took a slow breath. We're not hiring right now. Her smile flickered, then hardened into something practiced. Well, that's fine. I just thought family helps family, right? I didn't answer. She lingered a few minutes longer, pretending to admire the lighting fixtures. Then she patted my shoulder and said, "Remember who's always been there for you, Jillian." When the door finally closed behind her, I looked at the pies sitting on the counter. Cheap bakery boxes with condensation fogging the lids. I left them there for an hour before throwing them away. The smell of artificial coconut filled the air, syrupy and thick. The next day, Liam showed up. No text, no warning, just walked straight in like he owned the place. "Jill," he said, arms spread wide as if he'd just returned from war. "Look at this. God, I'm so proud of you." He pulled me into a hug before I could dodge it. I stayed stiff, my hands still damp from washing glasses. "Big night, huh?" he said, pulling back. "I heard all about that investor. 6 figures, right? That's incredible." I didn't confirm or deny it. I just nodded once. He looked around like he was already rearranging the furniture in his head. If you play this right, we could really grow. Maybe open another location in the next year." He said it so casually, like the word had always included him. "Here's what I'm thinking," he went on, pacing. "I handle the expansion side. Logistics, staffing, networking. You focus on the creative stuff. Food, brand, ambiance. You hate paperwork anyway, right? We'd make a perfect team." "Team?" I repeated quietly. He grinned. "Come on, Jill. Don't be like that. We're family. This could be big for all of us." The same phrase from his text. I could almost taste the greed hiding under the charm. I let him talk. I didn't interrupt. He used words like legacy and partnership, but all I heard was possession. When he finally stopped for air, I said, "I'll think about it." He smiled, relieved, and clapped me on the shoulder like a business partner sealing a deal. "That's my girl." After he left, I wiped the counter again, even though it was already clean. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. That night I called Ethan. He answered on the second ring, his voice warm and steady. "Hey, how's the restaurant?" I hesitated. "Crowded." "Good problem to have." "Not that kind of crowded," I said softly. He was quiet for a moment. "Your family?" I laughed, a small, bitter sound. "You could say that." "Did they apologize?" "No, they brought pies and business plans." He sighed. "Jill, maybe they just don't know how to say they're sorry." "They don't want forgiveness," I said. "They want access." He didn't argue. That's one of the reasons I loved him. He never tried to fix what I'd already decided was broken. After we hung up, I walked through the empty restaurant. The chairs were stacked, the kitchen gleamed, but I could still see it. The corner where their names had sat untouched. A memory surfaced, one I hadn't thought about in years. Me at 16, cooking dinner after Dad's heart surgery. Liam had promised to help. He never showed. When Mom scolded me for being too harsh on your brother, I asked, "What if I'd been the one who didn't show up?" She said, "Then you'd have had your reasons, sweetheart." Liam's reasons always mattered. Mine never did. Now, years later, nothing had changed. The roles were the same. I was the workhorse. He was the story. But this time, I had something he wanted. That night, I opened the spreadsheet again. I renamed it, The Tables We Choose. Under Liam's name, I added a note. Came for partnership. Left with nothing decided. Then I closed the file. For the first time, I wasn't angry, not sad, just aware. They were all going to keep coming, one by one, pretending to care, dropping hints, asking favors. I could feel it like a storm rolling in. So I made a decision. I'd let them. Let them think they were welcome. Let them plan, dream, and picture themselves in the middle of my success. Because when people show you their greed, the worst thing you can do is interrupt. You let them finish the sentence, and then you make sure they live with the ending. 2 weeks passed. I didn't have to chase them anymore. They came to me like moths to a light they thought they controlled. Every day brought a new coincidence. Uncle Ed stopping by, just to see how things were going. Cousin Jess dropping hints about wanting a change in career. Maybe I could manage your socials or help with PR. Mom leaving cheerful voicemails that sounded rehearsed. We should all have Sunday dinner there, Jill. Make it a family tradition. And every time they said the same thing before hanging up. We're so proud of you. The pride always sounded conditional, like a password I hadn't agreed to share. I let them talk. I smiled when they showed up. I nodded when they dreamed out loud about our restaurant, our business, our future, because by then I'd already stopped arguing. I'd learned something. When you stop trying to defend yourself, you become impossible to manipulate. One afternoon, Mom arrived early, unannounced, as usual. She was sitting at table 6, sipping coffee like it was her regular spot. I didn't even realize she was there until Mateo whispered, "Chef, there's a woman asking about loyalty cards." I looked up and there she was, floral scarf, clipboard, and a pen already poised. "Mom," I said carefully, "what are you doing?" "Oh, I've been thinking," she said brightly, flipping through notes. "We should start a rewards program. Maybe little cards with stamps. Buy 9, get the 10th free. People love that sort of thing. I even drew up some mock designs. I found a template online." I stared at her, the same woman who hadn't shown up to my opening night, now acting like co-founder of my dream. She kept talking, her tone light but insistent. "Also, your uncle says we should get merch. Mugs, aprons, tote bags. I could organize that, keep the money in the family. Oh, and we could feature some of Liam's homemade sauces on the menu. You know, make it a family brand." Every word dug a little deeper. I stood there, towel in hand, smiling like I wasn't unraveling. "That's thoughtful of you, Mom." She mistook my calm for consent. "See, that's why we make a great team, honey. We always have." She left a $5 bill under her coffee cup like a customer trying to play businesswoman and called over her shoulder, "I'll bring the loyalty card samples next week." I didn't touch the bill. I watched it curl slightly in the breeze from the door. That evening, Mr. Dalton called. His voice was the opposite of my family's. Quiet, steady, professional. "We're ready to move forward," he said. "The paperwork's nearly done. If we move fast, you could have a second location before spring." My chest tightened. "A second location?" He chuckled. "You sound surprised. You earned it, Jillian. Everything about this place works because of you." No us, no family, just you. It had been so long since I'd heard that word without conditions, I almost didn't recognize it as praise. We met the next morning. He brought 2 associates, suits, sharp folders, quiet confidence. They laid out the proposal. Licensing, branding, scale. The investment wasn't 6 figures, it was closer to 7. I signed nothing that day, but when I walked out of that meeting, I already knew I would. That night, I stood in the kitchen long after everyone had gone home. The lights hummed softly. The stainless steel counters reflected the glow like mirrors. I thought about my mom's clipboard, Liam's handshake, Aunt Karen's pies. They'd all made their move. Now it was my turn. I pulled out the folder Mr. Dalton had given me and opened it on the counter. Each page looked like a doorway I'd built myself. Then I took a sticky note, wrote 1 sentence, and placed it on top of the papers. "Don't let them in." Over the next few days, I let the family fantasy grow. I didn't correct a single rumor. Uncle Ed told everyone the restaurant's success was a team effort. Cousin Jess posted on Facebook that she was working with Jill on expansion plans. Even Mom told her church group, "We've got big things coming." I didn't respond, I just waited. Because pretending to play along was easier than explaining boundaries to people who only spoke entitlement. One night, Ethan came by to pick me up after closing. He leaned on the counter, watching me balance receipts. "You've been quiet lately," he said. "I'm just tired." "From the restaurant?" "From pretending," I said. He nodded slowly. "They'll keep pushing until you stop being useful to them." "I know." He reached for my hand, squeezing gently. "Then make sure they know when that day comes." I looked at him for a long time. "Oh, Ethan," I said softly. "They'll know." After he left, I stood by the dark windows, looking out at my reflection. The woman staring back didn't look angry anymore, just deliberate. My family thought they were in control, that I was too soft to draw the line. But they'd forgotten one thing. In a kitchen, timing is everything. You can let something simmer quietly for hours, and then, when it's ready, one small motion changes everything. And I was getting ready. 3 weeks later, everything was perfectly set. The rumors had matured into a full-blown delusion. My family believed they were part of our restaurant empire, that they'd helped get it off the ground. They used the word we so casually now that even outsiders started believing it. Mom bragged at her church luncheons. Liam told his poker buddies. Aunt Karen hinted that she'd soon handle events. And I just kept cooking, smiling, listening, letting them build their dream brick by brick, because soon I'd be the one to pull it down. The investor deal was finalized quietly. Mr. Dalton and his team met with me at a downtown office, all clean lines and quiet power. When I signed the last page, he said, "Congratulations, Ms. Brandt. You just leveled up." I didn't feel triumphant, just steady, like I'd finally reached a point where emotion wasn't needed, only clarity. The next day, Mom sent me a message that sounded like an announcement. "Mom, Sunday dinner, 7 p.m. at your restaurant. Everyone's coming. So excited to celebrate our success." She even added confetti emojis. I could have stopped her. I could have told her the truth right then, that there was no hour, that the papers were signed and sealed without their names anywhere near them. But instead, I smiled at the irony. "It was time." I replied, "Sounds perfect. See you all at 7. Sunday arrived like a storm that didn't know it had been predicted. By 6:30, the restaurant was glowing, warm light spilling through the windows, tables dressed in white again, a private event sign on the door. My staff knew the plan. I told them it was a private dinner, family only, and that I'd close up myself. At 7 sharp, they came. A parade of laughter, perfume, and self-importance. Aunt Karen in pearls, Uncle Ed in a jacket too tight for his ego, Cousin Jess holding her phone up for selfies. Say expansion. And of course, Mom. Bright lipstick, floral dress, clipboard under her arm, like she was hosting a gala. Then came Liam. He walked in last, grinning wide, his arm around his wife, the other hand resting on her belly. She was visibly pregnant now. "Hey, superstar," he said, pulling me into a half hug. "Thought we'd make it official tonight." "Official?" I asked. He winked. "You'll see." I smiled. "So will you." They filled the same tables that had once sat empty, the same corner I'd stared at during my opening night. It almost felt poetic. As they sat, laughter filled the air. They toasted with wine I'd poured myself. "To family," Mom said, raising her glass, "and to Jillian's hard work, and our bright future." Everyone cheered, glasses clinked, cameras flashed. I served them myself, every plate perfect, the best meal I'd ever made for them. Not out of love, but for closure. For the first time in my life, I didn't need them to like what I'd cooked. When dessert came, a layered pistachio torte, I set down a small envelope beside each plate. Cream paper, embossed seal. Mom smiled. "What's this? Oh, honey, how fancy." I said quietly, "My thank you letters for being here tonight." They tore the envelopes open like children on Christmas morning. The sound of paper ripping was the only noise in the room for the next 30 seconds. Then, silence. Uncle Ed squinted at the letter. "Wait, what is this?" Mom looked confused, her smile faltering. No, this can't be right." Liam's wife read aloud softly. "The restaurant, Haven Table, and all related business holdings are owned solely by Jillian Brandt. No family member holds or will hold any partnership, profit share, or employment role." The room froze. Mom's face went pale. "Jill, what is this supposed to mean?" "It means exactly what it says," I replied evenly. Aunt Karen gasped. "You're shutting us out?" "I'm clarifying boundaries." Mom slammed the letter down. "After everything we've done for you?" I raised an eyebrow. "Like skipping my grand opening? Or lying about it being streamed from Liam's poker table?" Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Liam leaned back in his chair, the fake charm finally cracking. "Okay, look, maybe we got off on the wrong foot. But come on, Jill. You wouldn't even have this place if it weren't for me. I told you to go for it, remember? I gave you the idea. So technically, I interrupted, you told me to quit culinary school because it was a waste of time. Then you borrowed the money I'd saved for rent and never paid it back. So no, Liam, you don't get a percentage of my life." The silence that followed was heavy and final. He smirked, like he still had one last card to play. "You really think you'll make it without family behind you? Investors come and go, but blood isn't currency," I said sharply. "Not here." He stared at me, jaw tight. I reached for one last envelope and placed it gently in front of him. This one's for you, though. He hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a check for 1,000. The note beneath read, "For your child, not for you." He looked up at me, stunned. "You think this makes you generous?" "No," I said. "It makes me done." That broke the spell. Mom started crying. Aunt Karen called me ungrateful. Uncle Ed laughed under his breath, muttering, "You'll regret this." Jess looked like she wanted to record the whole thing, but didn't dare. Through it all, I stood there calm. Finally, I said, "You made your choice the night you didn't show up. This is mine. The door swings both ways. Tonight, I'm closing it." Then I turned and walked toward the kitchen. The soft click of my heels, the only sound in the stunned room. By morning, when I came back, they were gone. The napkins were crumpled, the plates half finished, the letters scattered across the tables like snow. No thank you notes, no apologies, just silence. I didn't need anything else. For the first time, the restaurant felt like it finally belonged to me. Not because of the papers I'd signed, but because of the peace they'd left behind. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the restaurant floor like nothing had happened. But the quiet felt different, clean, earned. The air didn't carry the heaviness of waiting anymore. It carried stillness, like a room that had been properly emptied. I walked to the corner table, their table, and stopped. The same spot that had haunted me since opening night. The same table that had stayed untouched when I needed them most, then overflowed with noise when there was something to gain. Now only a few paper napkins and coffee rings remained. I didn't clear them right away. I wanted to see them for what they were, evidence. Proof that closure sometimes looks like mess left behind. I picked up one of the envelopes that had fallen to the floor. It was Liam's. The check was still inside, untouched. On the back of my letter, he'd scrawled a single line. "You'll regret this when you need us." I smiled faintly. The same threat my family had used my whole life. "You'll need us someday." It used to terrify me. Now it sounded like freedom. I set the envelope on the counter, washed my hands, and opened the restaurant like it was any other day. By noon, the staff had arrived, cheerful and unaware. Mateo noticed my calm and asked, "Rough night?" "Necessary night," I said. The investor's call came later that afternoon. Mr. Dalton's smooth voice filled my ear. "Everything finalized on our end. We're ready to start scouting for the second location." "You've got good instincts, Jillian. Not many people can separate business from blood." I laughed softly. "That separation cost me everything, Mr. Dalton." "Or maybe it gave you everything," he replied. "Depends on how you look at it." That night, I closed up early and walked home in the rain. Not the kind of rain that ruins things, but the kind that washes them clean. My reflection in the puddles looked older somehow, not tired, just finished. The following week, the family group chat went silent. No good mornings, no memes, no chain messages from Aunt Karen about angels and blessings. It was strange at first, then peaceful. The phone didn't light up with requests, guilt trips, or reminders that I owed them something for raising me right. The quiet was addictive. Mom tried once, a text that simply read, "We're all hurt, but we still love you." I typed back, "I know, but I need space." Then I muted the thread. Liam didn't text at all, but I heard from a mutual friend that he'd told everyone I was brainwashed by money, that I'd changed, that success had made me cold. Maybe it had, but cold things last longer. Meanwhile, the restaurant thrived. The reviews poured in. Words like honest, fresh, authentic. Journalists came by. Local bloggers called me the quiet force behind Haven Table. Mr. Dalton's firm moved quickly. We signed the lease for a second location before the quarter ended. And in a moment that meant more than I expected, I promoted from within. Mateo became head server. Our dishwasher, Lonnie, became manager. People who'd shown up when it counted now stood at the top with me. No relatives, no favors, just merit. One night after closing, Ethan stopped by with takeout and 2 bottles of cider. He looked around at the empty tables and said, "You did it." "I think I did," I said. He smiled. "You're quieter lately. Different." "I'm not waiting anymore," I said. "For what?" "For permission to be proud." He reached across his counter and touched my hand. "They'll come back, you know." "I'm sure they will." "And when they do," I smiled, "they'll find the doors locked after hours, just like that night." Later, when he left, I wandered into my office and found the old "Reserved for Family" sign I'd stored away. The one I'd made before opening night. Gold script on cream cardstock, a little smudged in the corner from my thumbprint. I stared at it for a long moment, remembering how careful I'd been, how proud. Then I tore it neatly in half, not out of anger, but closure. I dropped the pieces into the trash and whispered, "Reservation canceled." The next day, a small brown package arrived at the restaurant. My name written in looping handwriting I'd recognize anywhere. Mom's. Inside was a photograph. Liam and me as kids. Ice cream melting down our wrists, faces dirty, laughing like the world was simple. On the back, she'd written, "Don't forget where you came from." No apology, just nostalgia, her favorite form of denial. I turned the photo over again and stared at our younger faces. We looked happy. Maybe we were. But happiness then had depended on pretending fairness existed. I tucked the photo in a drawer, not out of hate, but honesty. I hadn't forgotten where I came from. I'd just stopped living there. Weeks passed. The second location opened. The press called it a testament to perseverance. Mr. Dalton called it vision. Ethan called it finally breathing. And for the first time, I agreed with all of them. Standing in the new space, I realized something simple but sharp. All those years, I'd been desperate for my family to notice me, to say we're proud of you and mean it. But pride from people who only love you when you're convenient isn't pride at all. It's ownership disguised as affection. Now, I didn't need either. The silence they'd left behind didn't feel like loneliness anymore. It felt like peace. A month later, I finally took a day off, the first real one since Haven Table opened. I woke up late, sunlight filtering through curtains instead of fluorescent bulbs, the quiet thick enough to taste. The photo my mom had sent still sat in the drawer of my office. For days, I hadn't touched it. But that morning, something nudged me to take another look. I held it under the light. There we were, Liam and me, maybe 7 and 9 years old, sitting on the curb in front of our old house, shoes untied, ice cream dripping down our wrists. We looked messy, happy, free. I could almost hear his laugh again, the one that used to sound like mine before life taught us which one of us mattered more. On the back, Mom's handwriting. "Don't forget where you came from." I traced the words with my thumb, then whispered, "I didn't, Mom. I just stopped asking for permission to leave." I tucked the photo into my notebook instead of the trash. I wasn't keeping it out of sentiment, more like evidence, a reminder that love doesn't always mean belonging. By the end of that week, the second location had its soft opening. Smaller space, same name, Haven Table North. Mr. Dalton attended with his quiet smile, investors clinking glasses, reporters scribbling notes. After the speeches and cameras, he pulled me aside. "You've built something solid, Jillian. I see hundreds of people chase success for revenge, but you—" He studied me for a moment. "You built it for peace, didn't you?" I nodded. I thought I wanted them to regret losing me, but now I just want to stop regretting myself. He smiled. "Then you've already won." Later that night, I returned to the original restaurant. The lights were low. The air smelled of basil and lemon oil. My staff had gone home hours ago. I sat at the same bar where I once cried through a burned espresso and disappointment, only now the silence was softer, not hollow, just calm. I pulled out my phone and opened the old family group chat. Last message still pinned at the top. "Tonight's the night. Everything I've worked for wouldn't be the same without you guys." No replies since. I hovered over the screen for a long time, my thumb almost trembling. Then I archived the chat. Not deleted, just placed somewhere it couldn't interrupt the present. A week later, Mr. Conrad stopped by, holding a newspaper. "Look at you," he said, pointing at the photo on the business page. Me in front of the new location, sleeves rolled, eyes clear. "You're famous now." I laughed. "Barely." He grinned. "You've done good, Jillian. Your dad would have been proud." I didn't know why that hit so hard, but it did. Dad hadn't been the type to say much, but when he did, it meant something. I wondered what he'd think of the way things turned out. Me standing alone, but standing. After Mr. Conrad left, I locked the front door and walked through the dining room one last time before closing. The walls glowed amber, catching the light just right. Every table had a story. Laughter, betrayal, truth, forgiveness. At the back, the ivy wall I'd planted was finally growing wild, leaves twisting past their frame. I brushed a hand across them and whispered, "Keep going." It felt like the first prayer I'd said in years. Months passed quietly. Business stabilized, the second location thrived, and I found myself sleeping through the night without replaying the old conversations. The silence that used to scare me had become my sanctuary. Sometimes I'd catch whispers, that Liam and his wife were struggling financially, that Mom was telling people I'd lost touch. I didn't respond. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. When you heal, you stop needing an audience. One evening, Ethan and I sat on the patio of the new restaurant, watching the city lights pulse in the distance. He raised his glass. You ever think about what's next? I smiled. Peace doesn't need a sequel. He laughed, clinking his glass against mine. Then maybe just an epilogue. I thought about that, how endings don't always have to be explosions. Sometimes they're quiet acknowledgments that you survived something meant to break you. I looked out at the street. Couples walking hand in hand, people laughing, the hum of traffic low and steady. This was never about revenge, I said finally. It was about coming home to myself. Later that night, after Ethan left, I returned to the kitchen to close up. I paused by the corner table, the one that had started it all. I placed a single candle at its center and lit it. The flame wavered, small but sure. I whispered into the quiet, "Thank you for not showing up that night, because if you had, maybe I never would have learned what peace actually sounds like." The flame flickered once, then steadied. I smiled, turned off the lights, and walked out, the keys jingling softly in my hand. Behind me, Haven Table stood glowing against the night, not as a monument to success, but as a symbol of something better, a woman who finally chose herself and never looked back.